from a logical perspective, it makes no sense, right? The person says, well, yeah, I totally want to lose weight. But from an emotional perspective, there may be a part of self that gets its emotional needs met through being overweight, or it's some protective mechanism.
Welcome to the Optimum Human Podcast, the show that interviews the world's top experts in fitness, nutrition, mindset, and beyond. Let's get into the show.
You did intro.
Oh God.
Man.
All right, everyone.
It's going to be one of those shows.
Welcome to another episode of the Optimum Human Podcast. I'm Brian McKay. He's Claude Petroulis.
Hi. And this is Jator Pierre. Jator, am I saying your name correctly?
Manure.
Pierre. That's what gets written on the Starbucks cup anyway.
That's right.
How the hell are you, man?
Didn't we just have this conversation?
No, we just got on the line 30 seconds ago. No, I'm joking. You're riding the wave, from what I recall.
Right.
Okay, so riding the wave. Facing my own challenges and learning how to navigate life each day, hopefully in a, I don't want to say a more productive way, but each day in a more compassionate and empathetic way toward myself.
Right on. Brian, how about you, man?
Doing good today, man. Doing good.
That is good. I'm drinking some nice lemon ginger tea from Higher Living Organic. They're not a sponsor yet, but
nice plug.
If I try hard enough, maybe we'll get one. So, Brian, I will let you take the reins on this one, please, sir. I know you've got 30 questions. Let's do it, man.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I got about 4 of them, so we'll see how this goes. But so Jator, for our listeners who don't know who you are, could you describe who you are and what it is that you do?
Yeah, describe who I am. That's a pretty interesting question. To be honest, I'm still figuring out who I am. I think on a daily basis, I'm learning more about who I'm not, and through that process, maybe tapping into who I am. And for me, when I speak on who I am, if I was to give voice to that, most of what I would share with you both, or whoever's listening as this gets deleted off the internet.
Yeah. All 3 of our listeners.
Yeah. I would be giving you my ego self-identification. So I'm a Czech practitioner. I study at the Kresser Institute. I study at Journeys of Wisdom. I'm a holistic inner coach, yada, yada, yada. But I think more and more I'm learning that, or maybe coming to somewhat of a realization, at least for aspects of me, that a part of me is simply a vessel of expression. And other parts of me are attached and self-identified with my human doings, what I do on a daily basis. And there's kind of a dance that goes on between both of those, and trying to, I think, find acceptance of both, that I do have an ego. I do have an ego that becomes attached. I do have anger and fear and resentment and shame and guilt, and sometimes I feel like I'm not enough. And then there's the other flip side of that, which is there's parts of me that are joyous and excited and feel like I am enough, or maybe on the opposite polarity, maybe even arrogant at times, to potentially hide how much insecurities I have, and or potentially because I'm pretty good at what I do. So, yeah, man, I'm still figuring out who I am, and what that actually means to me might be different tomorrow. So if we did this interview tomorrow, I might have a completely different answer. So, I think that was the first part of the question.
Yep. And I believe the second part goes into what you do, which I guess can be described in a lot of ways.
Yeah. So my human doings. I'm extremely passionate, at least I experience myself to be extremely passionate about mental and emotional exploration and like the inner reality, psychology. I'll put spirituality in quotes. I don't know that there's anything that isn't spiritual, and that's kind of where my head's at, or my heart's at, maybe more importantly. And I'm extremely passionate about sharing with clients and diving into their inner realities and their inner world, mainly so that they learn how to coach themselves. My perspective on what I do for a living is I would call myself a coach. However, I don't consider my job a position of coaching other people. I consider my job a job of helping others learn how to coach and care for themselves. And I learn more about myself through, in quotes, coaching others than I would doing any other job on the planet, I believe. So the offerings that come out of my mouth for my clients, if they ask for my opinionated opinion, which I try to give very little of, I get to learn a lot about myself, because most of the words that I speak, if not all of the words that I speak, are more for me than they are for anyone else that I'm speaking to. However, I think parts of me own the illusion that the words are for someone else. So I get to learn about myself every day. And the other aspect of what I'm super passionate about is how mental and emotional health and the HPA axis and the gut-brain axis and the gut itself, the digestive system, and I'm super fascinated by that, and genetics, epigenetics, the exposome, the hologenome. I'm pretty much, if I'm not playing hockey, I'm pretty much either working with some clients and or diving into study in topics that I'm really passionate about, and feel maybe for the first time in my life over the last, 10 or 15 years that I've ever felt extremely passionate about diving into topics, mental and emotional health, gut health, the stress response, allostatic load, allostasis, the gut microbiome. I mean, that stuff just, it turns me on, literally. Like, it's an intellectual turn on for me. And that's what I love to share with people. So that's what I base my business on. So awesome. I guess that's what I do.
Now, you said this is something you're really passionate about. Now, is it the new research into it? Is it just that there's more people talking about it? What kind of lights the fire for you?
Oh, yeah, that's a great question. I love that question.
That is a great question, Claude. I think that's the best question, the only good question you've ever asked.
You ball buster, Brian.
Oh, man. Oh, you guys are hilarious.
At least
awesome.
one person thinks so. I mean,
there's something for me in the spiritual circles, or whatever, mental emotional circles, however you want to frame it, Zen circles, Buddhist circles. A sign of a very developed human being is their willingness to play. So I really appreciate the playfulness on here. I think it's beautiful. So what floats my boat about what gets my passion going? Yes, I am into current research and research methodology. I think that's fascinating. However, what I'm more fascinated about is kind of the big picture of things, the global look. Yes, I study mechanisms and all that. However, science is an evolving project as well. So what we know as a mechanism today, or as a root cause today, or as a fact, or a very solid understanding in terms of scientific validity, in 5 years will be wrong, and or be distorted or looked at through a different lens, because as we continue to dive into each different topic, we continue to find clearer answers. And what fascinates me about that, if you kind of slap on the lens of quantum physics, which I'm no quantum physicist, so if I'm talking out my back end, please, whoever is a quantum physicist can correct me. But if you slap that overlay that, essentially what that means is the deeper we look into anything, we'll keep finding. So science is it's like the continual search of human beings to know is kind of a joke. There's no end game to this. There's always going to be more to understand, because there's always going to be new ideas and new perceptions to be thought of, which through a quantum physics perspective would always create more to learn. So it's kind of a very fascinating paradox of this continual search for a no end game. And if you look at that from the perspective of, it wasn't that long ago when you look at valid, well-done research, that antibiotics were considered fine. There's no ill health to the human being. However, when you ask the question, well, were we asking the right questions? Or did we have enough knowledge about the human being to even know whether antibiotics had any detriment to us? And the answer to both of those is no. We weren't asking the questions about the microbiome. We didn't even know about it in terms of how important it is to human health.
It was actually considered a quack science idea that something called, the microbiome controlled all this stuff. And it kind of draws parallels with when people thought fats were bad and you shouldn't eat any fat because you'll get fat and die. So yeah, science can only take us really so far until it's either overturned, like you're saying. And yeah, man. So now we're getting into the microbiome. And have you found any of this useful in your practice? I mean, obviously helping somebody's diet will help their emotions and all sorts of things. But what's the most significant outcome you've had with this research and delving in?
Yeah, well, what I think is most fascinating for me about all of this is that it's all intertwined. So you guys are both into, I guess, somewhat of Czech stuff, and you got HLC1 and practitioner side, and we look at things from a stress perspective or physiological load, and if you understand some basics around physiological load, then you start looking into the microbiome, and then you understand how physiological load also disrupts the microbiome, which disrupts metabolism, glucose regulation, inflammation, your body's ability to heal your small intestine, neurotransmitters, hormones, and on and on and on. We're just scraping the surface in terms of the effect that the HPA axis has directly on the microbiome through the vagus nerve from the brain, and then back up from the microbiome in the gut and the enteric nervous system back up to the brain. So, I mean, I've had clients, this is fascinating to me. I've had clients, so I'm a Czech level 4, HLC3, blah, blah, blah. And I have clients who come to me with some serious, musculoskeletal stuff going on, or chronic back pain, or blown discs, etc. And I'm not the most technical guy when it comes to biomechanics of the body. I find it, no disrespect to anybody that finds it very fascinating, I'd rather pull my toenails out than study joint mechanics. So, which is it's just not, I'll just refer to somebody who loves to do that stuff. So what's fascinating to me is the way I run my practice is when someone comes in, is what I want to do is I want to get, before I even do an assessment on their physical body, I'm looking at, okay, what's their global inflammation? How much stress are they under? How much gut issue do they have? I'm considering all of that as roots. And with most clients that I have, you have to earn your way into an assessment with me. Like, so I don't just start with assessments. I start with looking at where they're currently at and then addressing that. And if they have high levels of inflammatory processes going on, essentially, in my perspective, doing an assessment, unless they're in acute pain, is pretty much a waste of time, because you have organ and glandular reflexes, you have inflammatory processes going on, and that's all going to be expressed in the musculoskeletal system. So I have clients who've had chronic pain for 20 years, and literally in 30 days or less, doing some protocols that we'll work on together, their chronic pain is gone. And I haven't done one assessment or given them one exercise or one mobilization or one stretch. And what fascinates me most about that is that if you consider that as human beings, we have this soil that we grow out of. And what's in that soil? Well, your mental and emotional state's in that soil. Your organ and glandular health is in that soil. Your environment's in that soil. The moment of conception to this day is part of that soil, which is called the exposome, or the environment that you've experienced throughout your whole life. All of that needs to be considered. And if you start to address that stuff, the body itself has an amazing ability to heal itself. Mm. I've just seen, it's why I've moved away from doing so much physical stuff. Not that I don't like to hit the weights and throw weights around and do that. I just simply don't really enjoy that with clients. So, and I just get such good results with chronic pain, headache, eczema, autoimmune issues, etc., that it's just kind of where my business is kind of naturally evolved into.
Yeah, well, that makes sense, right? It's not only what you think works, it's also what you more enjoy doing, right? So it's kind of like being a mechanic versus being a painter, right? It's different fields, and you do it because you enjoy it. And I mean, there's some people out there that they go completely the holistic lifestyle coaching pathway, and they believe that's the way to fix people, and then the other people go straight to the exercise and say, you're gonna burn this off, or work until it's fixed. And I think a combination is good, but could you tell us what sort of things you look for in fixing a client? Like what are the top 3 things that you find are generally the biggest drivers of them being in pain or having issues?
Yeah, I'm gonna rephrase the question for myself.
Go for it, dude.
Yeah, Claude, that question sucked.
At least I have him, Brian.
Well, I guess for me, I pay very close attention to language, and also to the power of language. I think there's a lot of power in the words that we choose. And for me,
I feel
my
a lot
job
of
is
shame
never
right now.
Oh shit, it's fun. Oh man. For me personally, my own coaching opinion is that my job isn't to fix anyone. My job is to create an environment where I'm inviting people to learn to address and, in quotes, fix what it is that they feel is necessary to address at their pace. Mm-hmm. So I think it's, in my experience, it's a slippery slope as coaches. When we start to push our agenda on our clients, and when we self-identify with our clients' successes being our own, that creates a very codependent relationship. It also creates a parent-child relationship. And
good point.
For me, I don't have any kids, and I don't want any, and I definitely don't want my clients to be my children. So for me, it's it's more about really inviting them to feel into and to offer up, what do they want to fix, and what are they willing to address, and what are they willing to do? And I'm simply a guide on that process. And when kind of the train goes off the tracks, for lack of a better metaphor, then the approach isn't from a perspective of why aren't you doing what the hell I told you to do? The approach is, wow, what does it represent to you to be getting closer to your goals, and why would you guess that you're self-sabotaging? So then we can start diving into the mental and emotional roots of that, because in my experience, a lot of people, including myself at times, proclaim that we want something, all the while we're saying yes out of our mouths, our head is shaking it no. And
now,
in my
do you mean that literally or figuratively?
So literally, it's coming out of your mouth, I want to lose weight, and metaphorically, your head is shaking no.
Okay, I was genuinely curious, because at one point several months ago, I noticed myself actually literally doing that, saying yes, and my head would move back and forth no.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that I haven't seen that personally. You should probably get that checked out. But
Thank you.
I think I've heard that. I think I heard that line before from Mr. Sears, Brian.
It could be.
I think, what were we told?
Was it the same line?
Yeah, he's like, I think you should get that checked out.
Yeah, me and Mr. Sears probably spend a little too much time together, so
could be
the
The symbiotic relationship. 2 JPs.
Yeah. But what's fascinating about that is when you look at that from kind of an ego or a psychological perspective, you know, when people are having kind of issues showing up in their lives, and from a logical perspective, it makes no sense, right? The person says, well, yeah, I totally want to lose weight. But from an emotional perspective, there may be a part of self that gets its emotional needs met through being overweight, or it's some protective mechanism. So as this person starts to lose weight or get in better shape or lose fat, one thing that may happen is they don't recognize themselves in the mirror anymore. They don't recognize who they are in their clothes. They don't recognize how their body feels. Now, to the ego, that is extremely scary, because the ego is based on predictability and control. And that represents the ego being out of control and not knowing who I am. So another part of self could easily override the system and say, no. We need to go back to how we've always been, how we feel comfortable, how we feel familiar, where we feel safe and secure, even if from a logical perspective that makes no sense, right? We think about a man or a woman who's in an abusive relationship who stays in it. And a part of them says, well, I really want to get out of this. While a much larger part of them says, no, I don't. This is how I've always got my needs met. This is how I feel about myself. This is what I deserve. This is what's familiar from my own childhood.
So it's kind of like a subconscious safety blanket.
I'd say you said it better than I did.
I just like to try and distill things for myself to understand them. I'm simple like that. But no, it makes total sense. And now that I see my own personal practice and people sabotaging themselves, it kind of makes a lot of sense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, people go to where they feel safe.
It's almost from a psychological perspective, you could boil almost everything down to one simple word, which is familiar. It's familiar.
Yeah, the devil you know.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's fascinating.
Dude, like I'm just, there's all sorts of light bulbs lighting up in my head right now. So
you should get that checked out.
Screw you, Brian. You're just waiting for that.
And I think this kind of comes full circle for me. back to the beginning of our conversation, is if you notice for the rest of your day today or tomorrow, when you ask somebody, so how's your day going? The immediate habitual answer for most people is going to be, oh, it's going great, or it's going well, or it's going good. How's yours? And there's this immediate answer, which is habitual, one. And two, in my experience, it's also an immediate answer of everything is going great or good, or the kind of the smile on the face. Because from a socio-cultural perspective, we're not really taught that feelings are okay other than everything's okay. Mm-hmm. So when you guys asked me, that's why I said, shit, man, excuse me, I'm dancing, with my own waves. I'm struggling. I got stuff going on, because for me, that's a way of not denying myself. If I deny myself, then that stuff has to express itself unconsciously in some way in my life. So if I give it voice, it's like I'm acknowledging other aspects of who I am, that no, you know what, everything isn't unicorns and rainbows. Like, there are struggles, there are hard times, there are good times, there are beautiful times, there are rough times. And for me, that's the beauty of being a human being, is that we have the ability to experience the spectrum of feeling and emotion. But so many of us are taught not to experience anything and just to swallow those other, in quotes, negative feelings. And where do those swallowed negative feelings show up? Well, you guys do this for a living. Back pain, neck pain, gut pain, shoulder pain, knee pain, tension in the body, dysfunction. That's where it all shows up, because so many of us wear the facade and mask, including myself. And if you just look at the one of the most beautiful archetypes for me is the Joker. Mm. Joker's got this huge smile on his face, and what's underneath that smile?
Well, it's deep, and archetypes, like for people who don't know, could you explain? Like, I know about the card decks, the books, but for folks who aren't in the know, so to speak, would you just go into that for like a split moment?
Yeah, I'll give a really bad explanation of archetypes, because I haven't read one book on them.
You just have the cards like me.
Yeah. Essentially, from my perspective, archetypes are essentially masks that we wear throughout life. They're masks that we have expressions of. So you have the Joker archetype is one that I use. You have the Fool archetype, the prostitute, the caregiver, the rescuer.
I was waiting for that. We're talking about cards. I'm thinking, my warrior archetype beats your prostitute archetype.
I'm guessing you guys don't have a lot of females listening to this talk show.
I don't think so.
Not anymore. If we did, the last one just tuned out.
It's funny.
My name.
I was thinking you were saying you
my
guys
name's
don't have
ruined.
A whole lot of females in your lives, do you?
That is also true. But yeah, the way I understand archetypes is it helps you see yourself. So it's almost like holding a mirror up to yourself and being like, holy shit, that's me. That's what I do. And I think for people to get the cards, Google it even, just check it out, archetypes. It's fascinating. And as soon as you start delving in, you're like, wow, the self-sabotage is real. And this is what I'm doing, and I don't even know it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'd agree. For me, any tool that helps people start to look within themselves and get curious about what's underneath the surface, whether it's archetypes or meditation or working out or whatever it is, just starting to question self. And
introspection, right?
Yeah, introspection, and look inside and wonder what's underneath the surface. Like, how many people have asked you guys work with nutrition and exercise, I'm guessing. So how many people in your coaching have never even really took the time to say, like, I wonder why I eat what I eat, or how I eat the way I eat. Like, So just those simple questions is, that's why one reason why I love the Czech teaching so much is that in my experience of going through the program, what it essentially taught me is that, wow, I can turn anything into a spiritual practice. I can turn my posture into a way to start looking within me. So I'm always paying attention to my posture and starting to change my posture because my coach is helping me work on my posture. That is actually a full day of meditation. It's just people don't frame it that way. So I frame it that way for my clients. Okay, so this is your active meditation. Every 15 minutes, check in with your posture. Every 15 minutes, that means they're focusing their mind in on something. That's meditation. So as they start to go through that, okay, so we're focusing on posture, or we're focusing on good source water, or focusing on good source food, or we're just focusing on eating. That brings some level of awareness to slowing down their lives to start paying attention to self. So it's for me, that is a spiritual practice. It's slowing down and paying attention to, I wonder why I do what I do.
I think that's super important. And I believe this segues into a little thing that Brian wanted to try. And that involves some introspection, I believe. So Brian, do you want to reveal your ultimate question? You know what? That's deep, man.
I don't think there's an answer for that. I think there's only more questions.
That is deep. That is a good question. Oh shit.
Wow. Well,
he was lost in thought somewhere.
Well, no, you said the ultimate question. I'm like, that's usually our optimum human question.
No. That's not for another 3 minutes, Brian.
Right, well, thank you for queuing me up here.
You wanted an exercise. You wanted to do a certain exercise with Jator, I believe.
Yeah, I was recently came across your Incredible Hulk YouTube video.
Ooh, yay!
And yeah, it's so. Let me start off by saying, like, I'm feeling a whole lot of fear considering we had never spoken before 45 minutes ago, and to place both my positive and negative projections on you would be something totally out of my comfort zone. But
that sounds extra fun.
If you're willing to play with me, I would be willing to play with you.
I'd love to play with you.
Oh my God, I'm going to be listening to guys play with each other over the internet. All right, here we go.
Oh man. So one of the
So you're clear on the rules of the game. I'm just going to be silent and you're going to project all over me.
Sorry. All right. Okay.
You guys said there was no girls. There's only gay guys.
Not any. There's definitely no girls anymore. Oh shit. Okay.
Jesus.
All right. Can someone explain quickly for people who might just be tuning in, or maybe not even tuning in, just wondering what the hell's about to happen? Like the 10-second explanation.
Oh shit. Oh yeah, 10-second explanation. Sure. Okay, so this game is about owning your projections, and so when participant one will say some negative comments, projections toward the other, and after that negative projection is out, the one who said it then owns it, and the way that they own it is they give voice to, here's my negative projection, and here's what that means about me and how that shows up in my own life. And then you go into the positive projection, and then that person also owns that and turns it back onto themselves to own how they also do that in their own life. The person who's being projected onto,
what are we, like 12?
Oh man. Yeah, I feel about 12 right now.
The ship is going down.
The person that's being projected onto, their job is to be silent and to notice their internal need either to prove or defend, as well as their need to own the other person's projection, whether that's negative or positive. Because simply said, whatever's coming out of the other person is simply their experience of themselves projected outwardly. So your projection isn't mine to own. And if we can each learn to navigate life from the perspective of essentially that's your experience of me, that's actually not who I am, or maybe there is some threads of that to who I am, it opens up a much wider dialogue and a much easier way of creating connection rather than working through what's kind of the typical, which is blame, shame, guilt, essentially.
All right, guys.
So you're learning how to kind of step aside and let other people own their experiences of you, which is okay. That's not under your control.
Well, we can only control what we see and think, so I think that's fair. Guys, let's do this. Brian, are you ready to project all over the place?
Claude, we're dragging you into this, but
hey, you know what? Drag me. As long as I don't get projected on too much, I'm okay. You get a raincoat or something.
oh God. So
That's awesome.
Careers come here to die.
yeah.
Pretty much. I think my career is over. I'm going to go back to construction now.
Oh, shit. All right.
God.
Here we go.
So, one of my negative perceptions of you, Jator, is that you, in your videos, you use odd camera angles and filters to hide behind. And we'll say one of the positive things that I see in you is your super high levels of intelligence.
So now you're going to turn those around into stories about you.
Okay. So, I know for myself, I definitely hide behind other things. I guess archetypes or metaphorical mask would be how I would do that. I tend to not use filters or anything when shooting videos, and then I would also consider myself as super intelligent. And what's coming up for me is that adding the super in there feels very uncomfortable to me. That I'm okay with being intelligent, but not super intelligent.
Thanks for sharing, brother.
You're welcome.
And I appreciate your experience as well. Thank you. I acknowledge that.
Thank you.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Because I saw some stuff pop up too, and I'm like, oh, okay, all right.
So who just projected all over me?
Brian projected all over you. Claude does not project all over other men. He leaves that to action figures. Wait, that sounds even worse. God.
Yeah, that reminds me of Mama's Boy.
Oh.
Yeah, our careers are over, Claude.
Yeah, pretty much.
Let's just close the doors.
The old super intelligence just went down the drain on that.
Yeah.
Right.
And Brian, you're the funny one, yes?
He's the funny looking one.
Some might say. Some might say the opposite.
Oh, wow. Okay.
All right.
Let me take a stab at this.
He's in Detroit, so it wouldn't be the first time. Sorry, I had to.
That was good. That was good.
So, Brian, my negative judgment / projection onto you is that I believe you hide through the mask of humor the tremendous amount of pain that lies underneath the surface. How that's a reflection of me? Yeah, in my own life, I would guess that I probably don't use a deflection of humor as often. However, I definitely will use the facade of appearing Zen-like or very calm or got it all together, where underneath that surface, at times I use that as a way to facade and hide from what's really going on, or expressing, or potentially what's also coming up right now is something I've been working on quite a bit is a fear, a very deep fear of expressing my anger. And I've been really working on and playing with learning to functionally express my anger, own my anger, and not be afraid of my own anger, because of a lot of experiences that I had in my childhood that created the experience that anger is anger is something to be afraid of because people get hurt. So thank you. I appreciate that. And then positive. Yeah, I said I would guess that my experience of you in the few minutes here, what comes up intuitively for me is that I sense a lot of kindness in you, that I sense you have a really big heart, and you're really learning to accept and appreciate yourself. And I would guess that one way that you're learning to do that is through accepting and appreciating and helping others on that path. And through that, you get to learn about yourself and connect with that within yourself. And how that's a story about me? Oh, man. Yeah, for sure. There's definitely a part of me that on a daily basis when I'm with clients or with friends or family or people that I enjoy, I do get to learn a tremendous amount about myself externally. And sometimes there's a part of me that needs to rescue or care give to others as a reminder that there's parts of me that need to be rescued and care give to myself from myself. So I appreciate that as well. Thank you.
I appreciate you sharing that, Jator.
Yeah.
And I think that a lot of people would probably be able to draw parallels with that, especially those who always give, and they're giving all around, and within they're kind of leaving that cup empty. So, yeah, I think that's an important lesson, a little bit of introspection there. Let's see if that applies to you folks. So, Brian, did you have any more questions before we started getting to wrap-up stuff?
I was going to ask if you were going to play along, but...
Me? You know what? I don't know. I would, but there would be so much that would run out of time. And because I might be like, Brian, you're like, I don't know, your ears are weird, and then I'd start insulting you, and you'd hate me. And no, I'm joking. But no, I've got to run soon. But next time, I'll definitely do it. I'll do both you guys at the same time. It's not the first time I've said that with such confidence.
Oh man, that's awesome.
Oh shit! But
wow.
Yeah, that's a
that
wow.
Just happened. That just happened.
There's gonna be lots of editing in this one.
Hey, Mom and Dad, if you're listening, I'm sorry. Oh shit.
Oh, man,
Okay.
that's awesome.
So Brian, any closing questions? Because I do know you had prepared some stuff, but I mean, our wrap-up questions are generally pretty good.
Yeah,
you can always backtrack. Yeah.
Let's go ahead and jump right into the wrap-up questions.
Yeah, baby.
So,
all right.
God Almighty, you guys!
Are you thinking about? Oh man, wrap up. Oh, okay, all right. I just got that. You gotta be safe. Stay safe. Okay.
All right. If you could have a billboard anywhere, where would it be, and what would you put on it?
Wow, if I could have a billboard anywhere, what would it? Where would it be?
Where would it be,
and what
would it say?
That's a good question. Well, if I could have a billboard anywhere, I would assume and guess that I'd put it in a hometown in Berkeley, quite high, so everyone could see it. And what would it say? It would simply say, "I'd invite you to look within."
Mm. And I like that for more than one reason, but placing it high is important because from what I understand about Berkeley, California, is everybody else there is really high also. Having the sign up. Yeah.
Oh, your projections are great, Claude.
I was going to go with the mountains, but yeah.
Yeah, that works too. So let's get into resources and stuff. So do you have, let's say, for either Brian and I or anyone interested in health, fitness, mindfulness, introspection, what are the top 3 books or videos or courses that you've taken that have really changed your outlook and in-look, so to speak? Yeah, I just made that up.
That was good.
I'm gonna patent that so nobody steal it.
The in-look runs strong with you.
Oh, thank you, Master.
And is this because you guys are in Czech stuff? This is outside of Czech stuff.
Just anything, like even for our audience, like because we've had what was that book, E Squared?
E Squared. Finally,
yeah,
I'm like 3/4 of the way through it. It's fantastic.
Yeah, I just got it on Kindle the other day, so I've got to make my way through it. But like just any book that has kind of changed you or changed your perspectives.
Yeah, well, I'd love to give a plug to a place where I study and learn through coursework, audio, etc., and through in-person classes. For me, the deepest dive into the mental and emotional realms, spiritual realms, and that is a school called Journeys of Wisdom. And they just moved actually to Cape Coral. They're online. They have tons of audio, and their audios can be sometimes $3 for 2 or 3 hour class to $20 for super in-depth, deep exploration, and also looking at that from kind of a coaching perspective, from their perspective and from a Czech perspective. You can only guide any client to guide themselves as far as you've gone down that rabbit hole into yourself. Mm-hmm. So Journeys of Wisdom would definitely be top of my list. The other place for more left brain linear learning, science, and kind of the latest in research, etc., is a personal friend of mine as well. His name's Chris Kresser, and he has a website, chriskresser.com. He also has a podcast, which is Revolution Health Radio, and he is probably the deepest, most knowledgeable cat I know on most subjects to do with health and wellness. He is a beast when it comes to research methodology and sifting through research and actually finding more valid research. Notice I said more valid, not fact. I think it's an important distinction. And what I really wholeheartedly appreciate about Chris is not only is he probably one of the most respected functional medicine practitioners in the world, he's also a Vipassana meditator. And for someone to get to that level and be that well known, and to still to this day openly admit when he was wrong or change his mind based on what current research is saying, for me is phenomenal. That to be that high up and to be that seen, and to also be humble enough to change your mind in front of hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people, I think that might be one of the best lessons for us all to learn, to humble ourselves. That dude's a beast.
He's incredibly smart, and from what I've seen, each time he's changed his perspective, it's for the betterment of the people that are following him. You know, it's not an ego thing for him. He's like, listen, this is the better way. You know, like
and so much free stuff. I mean, I've studied I've known him for about 10 years before he became Chris Kresser. And I just completed the first year of the Kresser Institute, and man, hands down, some of the just world class in every respect, just world class.
Well, it seems like he's the type of guy to not cut corners. So yeah. So I mean, I've looked into his courses, and it looks amazing and selective. Also, they don't just let any old Joe like me in. So it's pretty.
All licensed practitioners, essentially, unless you went through a personal process with them to get in. It's very cool.
Yeah.
So Journeys of Wisdom, the Kresser Institute, and then I gotta plug my boy, Paul Chek.
The big guy.
Yeah, the Chek Institute. Paul has been a friend to me, a mentor to me, a challenge. We've gone at it, and at the end of the day, what I appreciate about him is his willingness to come to the table, have conversation, work things out, share perspective, and Paul's a beast too, man. All those three guys, John McMullen, Paul Chek, and Chris Kresser, they're all my men crushes. Eminem's my fourth, so we'll just throw him in there because Eminem's a beast too, and just drifts
from
with
Detroit.
Yeah, and he drifts with he drifts with passion, and that's what I love. But the Chek Institute has been kind of the, it's been the cog that's kind of taken all these other things that I've learned, and it's given me places to put these other puzzle pieces so I can fit it into this very holistic system that I've learned and really appreciate. And the Chek Institute and Paul have watered plenty of seeds, and I work for them, and I love what I do, and I love sharing Chek philosophy. I think there's a lot of just beautiful, beautiful things about it. And most importantly, for those three guys, my experience of each of them is that in their hearts, no matter what their egos say, in their hearts, they're all trying to help other people grow and learn and become better people and help the world. And that's beautiful to me.
Awesome. Yeah, I know that the Chek Institute, at least for me, has been a runway to other things. Is like I didn't think I'd be where I am now, but you take one course and all of a sudden your life changes directions. You don't even see until you look back.
You meet Brian, and it's all downhill from there.
Yeah, you meet Brian. It's all somewhere from there.
Then you start taking two guys on at once, and it's
then
a whole
just
new
have
ballgame.
everybody projecting all over you. And you need to rap, and then Brian's dripping with passion. And
Oh God.
all right. We have one more question. One more question.
Two more.
Two more questions.
Two more questions.
All right. So, who would you want to hear on the podcast, and what would you want them to hear? What would you want to hear them talk about?
What would I want them to hear? Well, that's a good question.
Just loud screeching.
Well, I would like you to invite someone on the podcast and then play my podcast to them and just see if they laugh.
That would be some meta shit right there. I think what Brian meant is, who would you like to hear on the podcast, and what would you like to hear them talk about?
Thank you, Claude.
If you, my perspective, if you want to get on a real, excuse my French, effing or English, a wizard, a real live wizard on the phone, John McMullen.
John McMullen. And that's the Journeys of Wisdom, gentlemen?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
All right.
And I'd love to hear him talk about any topic.
All right.
Perfect. Yeah, I've heard his name from a lot of you higher up Czech guys, and he seems to be very behind the scenes and very underground. So I definitely would be interested to hear what he has to say and teaches all of the people that I'm learning from.
Yeah, he's JP and I that's our personal mentor. That's where a lot of the mental and emotional growth and perspective came from, is Journeys of Wisdom and John.
Okay. So you work with a coach?
Oh, I have 3 coaches myself.
Okay.
Yeah, I think a sign of a good coach is that they have coaches.
I think that's also important.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, because if you stop growing, it's like, to me, it's like if you stop going uphill, you're going to start rolling downhill. So, yeah.
Yeah, I coach with John for mental and emotional stuff. I coach with his wife Lee, who does dream work stuff, which is amazing. And then I work with Rob Yang for physical stuff.
Okay.
Right on.
Cool.
Awesome. And the final question. Brian, you asked this better than I do, because I jumble up all my words, but please.
Oh, man. So, Jator, what is your definition, or who comes to mind when you hear the optimum human?
Yeah, optimum human for me. No one singular person comes to mind. However, what would be represented in an optimal human would be the ability to embrace their mind and their intellect, and also to wholeheartedly embrace their heart and intuition. And if they could balance both of those realms synergistically, I think that would be an ultimate expression of the optimal human.
Awesome. I like it.
I love it. Simple yet profound.
That's I think you've been called that also, right, Brian?
I have.
Well, Jator, it was a blast, man. Any parting thoughts? Where can we find you?
Yeah, you can find my deflective videos on YouTube. I'll openly admit, for sure, I do that. Man, you got me. Yeah, there's definitely a part of me that definitely gets afraid in front of the camera. So I've been playing more with being face on, and also playing also with different scenes, etc., for a different feel. But yeah, for sure. I think I shot a video called "I'm Scared to Share," I think that pretty much sums up how a part of me feels very, very, very clearly. So YouTube is Explore with Jator. I'm super effing excited. Completely rebranding my website, and everything's changing. And I'm working with this person that the first question they asked me was, "So Jator, if you would wear anything you wanted to wear, what would you feel most comfortable in?" I said, "Well, my hat slightly to the side, some weird comic book shirt, some slick pair of diesel jeans, and the craziest colored checkered Vans I could find." And she said, "That's what's going to be on your website." So I'm super excited to really represent myself. And that website is wehlc.com, which is the old one right now, but the new one's coming soon. And I think that's about it. Awesome. I will be doing some more workshops. We just did, Mike Salemi and I just did a one-day workshop yesterday called Guts and Bells.
Awesome.
And we got 15 people to our first workshop, which is awesome. And we're doing a progressive workshop, which we're kind of growing from the soil, kind of what we've talked about today, and then into stability, strength, performance from the kettlebell side. And I'm going into HPA access, gut dysbiosis, gut permeability, mental and emotional aspects, and how that all ties in each layer, going deeper and deeper in progressive classes. So I'll keep you guys posted with that.
Oh yeah. Well, Mike's a great guy. We had him on the podcast. It's really knowledgeable. And he seems like he can kick both mine and Brian's ass with one hand tied behind his back. So
Mike is my nickname for Mike is Captain America.
Captain, that's fitting.
I could see that. Yeah.
Yeah. I love Mike. He's an awesome cat.
No, he's cool. All right. Well, thank you for joining us this evening. I guess in California it's this afternoon. And yeah, we really appreciate it, man. This was a blast, and I think hopefully our listeners, if there's any left by now,
right,
they'll have enjoyed this too. But thank you for whoever stuck around, and have a fantastic day.
Yeah, I'm honored and humbled and really appreciate the invite, and I had a blast. And to everyone out there, including you guys, thank you for allowing the little 12-year-olds and us to play and have some fun in the sandbox. It's appreciated.
It's always good to let out the inner child.
I agree. All right, my friends.
All right, sir.
Take care.
You too.
See ya.
Thanks for listening to the Optimum Human Podcast. If you enjoyed the show, please remember to head on over to iTunes and give a 5-star rating and review, which will help spread the word to more awesome listeners just like you. Head on over to theoptimumhuman.com and subscribe to the free newsletter and get the Optimum Humans Blueprint to the Optimum Life. Download it instantly. Thanks for listening.